Everyone at the shelter warned the new volunteer to stay away from the Doberman in Run 6. 95 pounds, jet black, a red "Do Not Adopt" card zip-tied to his date, and a muzzle for anyone who came close. What no one there understood was that a grieving father and the one dog nobody would touch were about to save each other. And 5 months later, a nursery camera would record 11 seconds that left an ER doctor with his hand over his mouth. Caleb Mercer was 30, and 11 months earlier he had become a father and a widower in the same week. His wife Grace died 2 days after their daughter Nora was born, a 1 in 40,000 complication no one saw coming. Caleb drove home from the hospital with a car seat, a baby who had Grace's exact eyes, and a house so quiet it rang. He worked from home in a little blue house on the edge of Missoula, Montana, which meant it was just him, Nora, and a silence that started the moment the sun went down. He was surviving the 2 a.m. feedings, he was not surviving the nights. So he started volunteering at Clark Fork Rescue on Saturdays, mostly to be around something alive. Everyone there had one rule for him: stay away from Run 6. The dog in Run 6 was a surrendered guard Doberman named Diesel, given up by a scrapyard when the owner retired. In 8 months, not one person had leashed him without a fight. He lunged at the bars. He wore a muzzle for his own shots. The director, a woman named Ruth, had already had the hard talk with the county. Diesel had spent 8 months behind bars with a red card on his gate because the whole world decided he was too dangerous to love. I still see you haven't subscribed, and honestly, that stings a little. The only person who would sit with a dog like that was a man who had lost everything too. If you believe he deserved a second chance, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, and to a dog like Diesel, it would have meant everything. The first Saturday, Caleb sank onto an overturned bucket outside Run 6. Too tired to do anything but stare at the floor, Diesel stopped lunging. He lay down. He set his chin on his paws and watched the grieving man breathe. Ruth found them like that 40 minutes later and said nothing. Caleb came back the next Saturday, and the next. On the 5th, he signed the adoption papers. Ruth told him he was out of his mind. He did it anyway. The first time Caleb carried Nora into the living room, Diesel crossed the floor, lowered his huge head, and breathed her in. Then he lay down between the baby and the door, and from that second on, Nora was his. And that was the problem, everyone said. Diesel would not let a single person near her. When Caleb's mother flew in to help, he put himself between her and the crib and would not move until Caleb said his name. When a neighbor leaned over the stroller, he stepped in front of it, silent, unblinking. "You cannot keep a 95-pound guard dog around a baby," his mother said at the kitchen table. "One bad day and that animal ends her." Caleb heard it from everyone. He kept Diesel anyway. Because at home, the dog everyone feared was something else. Diesel slept with his spine against the crib, all 95 pounds of him, awake every time Nora stirred. He had a thing about her yellow pacifier. Every morning he carried it to the kitchen and set it by his food bowl, like Rent. He left a puddle of drool the size of a saucer at every meal, and slowly the house stopped ringing. When Nora laughed, Diesel's whole back end wagged so hard he knocked things off the coffee table, and she laughed harder, and it was Diesel who had turned that silence back into a home. Caleb was sleeping again, 4, then 5 hours at a stretch, because for the first time since Grace died, he was not the only one keeping watch. Some stories are too good to keep to yourself, and Diesel was already writing his. Then, in Nora's 10th month, Diesel started doing something new. He would not settle at night until he pressed his nose to her back through the crib slots 2 or 3 times, like he was checking. Caleb thought it was just the dog being the dog. He had a camera in the nursery, one he had bought to watch the baby and, if he was honest, the dog. He never imagined what it would catch. The same dog a scrapyard threw out, the same dog 8 months on a red card, the same dog Caleb's own mother swore would hurt her granddaughter. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, that dog did the one thing no human in the house could have done in time. Caleb woke to Diesel barking, a sound he had never heard from him, sharp and enormous and endless. He ran to the nursery and found Diesel with his front paws on the crib rail, barking down at Nora. She was on her back, gone a terrible gray blue, not crying, not moving, her chest completely still. Caleb grabbed her and she was limp in his hands. He remembered 2 things from a class Grace had made him take, and he did them. He cleared her airway. He gave 2 slow breaths into her tiny mouth. On the 3rd, she coughed. Then she screamed, and it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. He drove the 14 miles to the ER, doing 80 through empty streets. Diesel pressed to the back seat the whole way. The 2 doctors said a mucus plug had blocked her airway in her sleep, that she had stopped breathing, and that a few more minutes would have been too late. No one would have reached her. Caleb was asleep down the hall. The monitor only caught sound, and Nora never made a sound. The only reason he woke was 95 pounds of Doberman screaming at a crib. At dawn, Caleb pulled up the nursery camera to see it himself. The footage showed Nora go still at 2:44 a.m. It showed Diesel lift his head 11 seconds later from a dead sleep, like something pulled him up by the spine. It showed him press his nose to her back, once, twice, then rear onto the crib rail and bark with everything he had, 3 full minutes before Caleb ran into frame. The dog the county had wanted to put down heard a baby stop breathing through a wooden crib and refused to let her go. Caleb watched it 6 times on the nursery floor. Then he put his arms around Diesel's neck and cried the way he had not allowed himself to cry since the hospital. His mother came back a week later. She watched Diesel lying with his chin on Nora's ankle while the baby pulled his ear, and she said nothing about guard dogs. She got down on the floor beside him and said, "Thank you for staying." Clark Fork Rescue shared the story, and Ruth called to say they had emptied their entire long-stay kennel in 9 days. People suddenly wanted the dogs nobody else believed in. Today, Diesel is 5, Nora is walking, and she will not fall asleep unless he is on the floor beside her crib. He still steals the yellow pacifier every morning. He still leaves a saucer of drool at every meal, and he still puts himself between Nora and the door, the way he did the night the house went quiet in the worst way. When people see a 95-pound Doberman shadow a toddler and ask if Caleb is afraid, he just shows them the video. The 11 seconds a sleeping dog lifted his head and decided a little girl was going to live. When a dog will not leave your child's side, don't call him dangerous. Don't call him too much. Sometimes the thing the world fears most is the only one awake at 2:44 in the morning, close enough to feel a heartbeat change. Diesel never needed training to save Nora. He only needed one grieving man on an overturned bucket willing to sit with him when no one else would. Did Diesel save Nora because he was trained to, or because he chose her the day he chose Caleb back? Tell me in the comments. And if a rescue dog ever pulled you out of your darkest place, tell me his name below. Somebody scrolling tonight needs to hear it.